or sort of, almost. It says you're alive. Well, here goes nothing.
And you're gonna say welcome to another.
You say it. You say it. It sounds like you're doing
I said it in the last one.
Okay, fine. You did it in one. All right. Welcome to another amazing, rant-free, anger-free episode of Command Control Power. Thank you for joining us. I'm joking because our recent show was me and Jerry and Sam ranting about the complaining things that we all deal with on a very regular basis. But we're going to make this show a more positive experience for listeners, hopefully. But if you enjoy a good rant, definitely go back and listen to the prior episode and let us know your thoughts.
You know what's magical? I wanted to VPN, or I wanted to connect to a local network for a client that was using UniFi. And I had just installed this system about a week and a half ago. And it's a double natted system. And I guess you can do some port forwarding in the Comcast router to, make a VPN work through UniFi.
Do you know that? Yeah. Do we know that? I assume that you may be able to forward ports like from the modem to from the router, right? From like the ISP's router or whatever.
There's actually,
UniFi.
Yep. There's a little note in UniFi when you go to the network, the WAN, and you put in what the real WAN is, and they say, oh no, you've got to do this port forwarding. But I couldn't because I wasn't on site and I couldn't access the Comcast router. And Joe said, well, why don't you use Teleport? And I'm like, well, I know about that. That's the site-to-site thing, right? And Joe said, no, the site-to-site thing with UniFi is called what?
I didn't know you were going to be giving me a pop quiz here. Is it SD-WAN or something? Or
no. It's some other marketing term.
Site Magic, SD-WAN.
Site Magic, yes, indeed. So I said, okay, thanks, Joe. I got off the phone with him, and within moments, I downloaded the iOS version of Wi-Fi Man, because that's how you access it, onto my Mac. And I turned on Teleport on the UniFi in the UniFi control, and I made an invite for myself. And magically, Teleport made the connection. And now I've got this I don't need VPN anymore. And it's fast. So I'm on the network through this Wi-Fi Man app and enabling it on the UniFi side, and it's beautiful.
Nice.
I'm glad my advice worked for you. I noticed you haven't paid that invoice yet, though. Did you receive it?
Dear Jerry,
we're investigating it right now, Joe. So we'll get back to you on it. I had to pass it on to a senior person here.
Yeah, no,
so
I'm sure
we're investigating.
You have accounts payable working on that one. Yeah,
yeah, we're working on
it. By the way,
that's great.
This is neither here nor there, but my wife was listening to us record the other day. And after I saw her afterwards, and I came downstairs, and she's like, "You guys are really entertaining." She's like,
nice.
She's like, "I was sitting there laughing at you all," and I was like, "Oh, I hope it was not laughing at us, but laughing with."
Yeah.
She said, yeah, it was really entertaining. I was like, "Well, I was like, thank you," because that's a non-technical person listening to the show.
Right.
Yeah, that's why we're making the big money here with the Patreon and the sponsorships and everything. We're just rolling in the dough. As a matter of fact, I had an elevator installed and I've got a telephone in it. But before we leave this topic, I don't want you people to not take a look at this, because everyone listening, if you're a UniFi Ubiquiti person, take a look at Teleport through Wi-Fi Man. It's the bomb. You don't have to do any configuration. Nothing.
So, Jerry, to question you on that, you said you didn't need to use a VPN, but I'm assuming that Teleport is some sort of VPN connection, correct?
I mean, yeah,
it's just an auto config. It's like a profile or something that knows to connect back to your UniFi.
Yeah, and as long as you're running Wi-Fi Man that's how you access it. So it's like as if you had a SonicWall, right? And you use the SonicWall app to connect into the VPN. It's the same thing, but it's just magic.
That is sweet.
Unify is hard at work at Wi-Fi Woman. It's coming soon, and then pretty soon everyone will be able to access this wonderful service. But it seems
Why can't
like
it be Wi-Fi person? That's what I want to know.
it is it's a weird name. That's my point, is like Wi-Fi man. I don't know. But okay, it's cool. I mean, I'm glad that worked for you. This was all theoretical. I've never used it, but I was like, I think they have a thing, and I'm like, Jerry, try this. It's like me.
Jerry will try anything.
Yeah.
Beta, but Jerry will do it. So why did you need a connection, by the way, back to the home office?
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
I use Hoodoo for their documenting their network, and I wanted to do a local IP scan and then import that data into Hoodoo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, and you have an on-prem Hoodoo, right?
No, I do their cloud instance.
Okay. Yeah, I used Hoodoo after your advice, and I love it. It took me a while to transfer all my stuff out, but it works great.
Yep.
Transfer from 1Password?
No, I was using a tool called Basecamp for way too long. I mean, way too long.
Yeah.
And it was very, very basic, and I really needed to get out of there. So I finally took the plunge. And like I said, we all took some projects on, and we all shifted our stuff over. And now the nice thing I like about Hoodoo, just again, in comparison to what I was using, is the organization of like passwords here, knowledge base here, global data, global knowledge base for the whole company here. And it's very organized. It's organized very well. So that always makes me happy.
Yeah, you can upload pictures now. That wasn't really a thing for a long time. So that's helpful. If you're taking pictures of the network rack, you could put in the company logo so you could easily identify it. So, you can really personalize it and customize it whatever way you want.
Nice.
Yeah.
And Sam, are you hosting your own instance of it or no?
No, I'd rather not. Yeah. I thought I heard you say that you were doing it, but I'd rather just pay someone to do it.
Yeah. The savings that was represented there versus screwing around with it when it wouldn't work and stuff like that. I just need reliability.
No, I hear you.
Well, for me, go ahead, Sam. Well, so I was going to talk about documentation. So for me, I'm still using 1Password, as you guys probably know, and I've complained about them in the past. I think once a long time ago.
No, never.
But so I want to give a positive thing about 1Password. So I have a 1Password tip, and it's also kind of under the umbrella of I should have known this. You guys might already know this, and you might have even told me this, but I've been complaining about search for a long time in 1Password, where it used to be like most apps, you can bring up a note or a document or whatever and Command F and find the thing you're looking for. It's called Find, Command F. In the edit menu. People have probably used it before. Yeah.
Let me write that down. Hold on a second. Let me get it.
Right. No, you wrote it down last time, Jerry. I think I mentioned it. So you've probably got a note somewhere.
He forgets. He forgets.
Yeah. But you can Command F and you can find your note about where you wrote down Command F, and then you'd be all set. So Command F, then that stopped working. Now Command F is just searching for the note, right? You can't search in the note. You can only search for the note. So that's different, right? And it was like, okay, I can find the note. I can type, if I'm looking for Johnny Appleseed's note, I can type, Appleseed, right? And it's like going to find the note. Now I've got the note, but maybe it's becoming a long scrolling list of things. I use unstructured documentation for a lot of just residential client stuff like that. And, it's going to say maybe something about, if you get stuck in the elevator at their house, dial 9 for an outside line or whatever. It's going to have all the important information there. Yeah. And then it's going to, you need to scroll down, and then it's got like, their iCloud, ID or something like that. And all the pertinent information, right? But some of these get pretty unwieldy, and I've got to scroll and like find the thing manually. I'm looking at the screen, and I'm skimming it to try to find the thing.
Like an animal.
Like an animal. I used to be able to Command F and just search for Apple, and I could find the Apple, ID or whatever. So now I realized just by trying this, that
are you looking for the Apple ID or the iCloud ID? That's what I need to know.
Yeah, exactly.
Now they're called Apple accounts. I don't know if you guys heard
that. Oh yeah. Except in old OSs. So now you've got to have documentation for every possible variation of that, and also they moved profiles. So it's not under, privacy and security. So now my script is like, if you're running an older Mac OS, it's in the system preferences. If you're running these two versions of Mac OS, it's in system settings, privacy and security, not security and privacy like it used to be called. Now it's privacy and security. So that's different in both in different eras. Scroll to the bottom. Now it's actually under general device management, right? So it's like a third total different remapping of this thing. Yeah, just to complicate things.
This is all on the test, and you know who I'm talking to.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm in 1Password. I'm trying to find a note. So let's say I want to search for, well, maybe Appleseed's a bad example. Okay. Let's say I want to find Johnny Appleseed's iCloud, ID, right? Or iCloud like username. So I can type in the search field Appleseed space iCloud. And unlike most search fields on the Mac, that will do a what do you call it? Like an individual word match. Yes. So you didn't know that either. Okay.
Wait. So maybe I have this wrong. So that will find the name of the note, and then the secondary action will find inside the note.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh. Which great. That's exactly what I wanted. And I didn't know that. Didn't know. Me neither. And I just one day tried it. I'm like, this is getting to be annoying. I'm just going to try this. And sure enough, both terms are highlighted in the document. So if you've got their last name Appleseed in there, that's highlighted in the note. Fine, I don't need that. But like if you scroll down, iCloud is highlighted along with Appleseed.
I don't know what this means, but isn't that called Boolean search?
Well, but it's different though, because it finds the note which contains the person's last name, and then in that note it highlights both the first search term and the second search term. It does like it's like a non-exact match or something. Like normally it would search for the entire phrase Appleseed iCloud with a space in the middle, and you wouldn't find it, but in this case it searches for, maybe it's Boolean. It might be a Boolean search, like an or basically is implied between Appleseed and iCloud. But the good news is it highlights both terms. Anyway, it's a great. It solves that problem for me of how 1Password changed. That's very
that's
very
a pro
helpful.
tip.
Yeah, it sure is. And they just turned 18 years old. So congratulations to 1Password for turning 18.
Really?
Yeah.
Whoa. Okay, that's like a lot older than I thought they were. But all right, cool.
Yeah.
Now, what do you think is going to happen to your your friend, 1Password? I mean, have they been Sherlocked with this latest version of the OS, or what happened there?
I'm psyched that Apple introduced the Passwords app because, do you remember the days of keychain access? Are you kidding me? Like, that's what we used to have to deal with, It's like, what is this certificate? I don't need that. Delete that. Or like, what is this? What is this like API key? Delete that, or what do you call it? But yeah, like the fact that we've had passwords, it blows people's minds to show them Safari. It used to be preferences or settings, passwords, let alone, now it's in system settings it's in system settings, passwords. They love it. They love just finding that out because every single client has the same response. I see those suggestions and I never use those, and because they're too complicated. I can't remember that. I'm like,
that's what Sam says.
Yeah.
How about you, Sam? Do you think seriously, do you think 1Password's still in the running here or what?
I mean, if you think about it, 1Password has a lot of other functionality, like for sharing and stuff like that in a business setting. That maybe it could Sherlock like the individual use cases of 1Password, hit that game hard. Yeah. But I think there's so much to 1Password now with these fancy searches that Joe's been talking about. But
I know a guy who manages his company information for his different clients in 1Password.
I'd like to talk to that guy. Yeah. So I used family sharing, what do you call it? Shared passwords, whatever, for the first time today. I've never used it for some reason. I just haven't had the need or the opportunity. But I have a home user. Again, I have a lot of residential clients, and they have a iMac at home where, one person is signed into their iCloud, obviously, but they both just use that Mac. They don't have different user accounts on the Mac. And this was the Facebook issue that I was complaining about recently where the passwords are saved in the Mac under her husband's iCloud account, right? Because that's the Mac. They don't sync to her iPhone. So it's very easy. You go into passwords and you can, choose to enable the password sharing. You create a group. You can create a name like Family Passwords or whatever, and you can choose which passwords go into that group. And then in the future, you can move passwords between them. So very similar to 1Password vaults. So that was very useful in that case. But again, it depends on family sharing, I believe. I don't think it works outside of the family sharing situation. So it's not for enterprise at all or any company situation. But it's very useful in the home. The other thing that 1Password has done that Apple's not doing is it's cross-platform, cross-browser, right? So the two use cases for 1Password used to be if you're a company, obviously 1Password. But also, if you're a residence and you want to share passwords in the family, I used to recommend 1Password. Now you can do that with the shared passwords in iCloud Keychain.
Yeah.
The third reason that I would recommend 1Password was if you use Chrome and you really insist on using Chrome, or you want to use Chrome and Safari, and I can't convince you just to use Safari, it's easier and better and whatever, then 1Password supports cross-platform. But now Apple also supports. They have an extension for Chrome, right? And I think Firefox. I'm sorry, not Apple. Did I say that? Apple iCloud Keychain can now do that. So there's fewer and fewer reasons. So to your point, Jerry, it's Sherlock for the home user, I think, at this point. I think
I would say 30-40% of their market share, if I had to guess, might be
that big individual. Okay.
I would think so, yeah.
Well, and Richard Russell in the chat mentions they bought Collide, which we mentioned probably a few months ago. And now Collide is advertising as Collide by 1Password. So I see the benefit of this. There's pros and cons to capitalism, as we talked about in the last show. But venture capital moves into 1Password, right? They, here, let's blow you guys up. Let's give you a bunch of money and see what happens. 1Password buys Collide. Good for Collide. Honestly, very happy for Collide on that. And then now Collide can benefit from the sort of mind share and technical capital that 1Password has earned. And when Collide advertises, they're under the umbrella of 1Password. So it actually really does benefit them. And besides, Collide can be integrated better with 1Password and so on. So I think that's actually a really, solid benefit. If you need Collide, it's even more approachable now being part of 1Password. I give 1Password a lot of credit, speaking of when they took on a bunch of money, going into the enterprise. They really went, much harder into the enterprise, saying now we don't, we all complain because they stopped caring so much about individual end users and residential and kind of the way that we've been using 1Password. They care more about the enterprise, but credit to them for seeing the writing on the wall from Apple that when Apple comes out with the Passwords app, that's got to decimate the market for 1Password in homes, right?
I got to tell you, if they find or if they already haven't, I don't know it, a way to import my data easily from my 1Password, then it would make it usable. But for right now, I don't want to go through the painstaking task of changing everything that I have.
You would switch to Apple passwords instead of 1Password.
Not for my business, but for individual use, sure.
That's a good point. Because they're actually annoying when they both conflict, right? So it actually would be really nice to say, I'm just going to use iCloud Keychain for all my personal stuff and use 1Password only in business, which is kind of what it's designed for.
Yeah. The other thing too is, and I have nothing to base this on, but maybe this investment capital that he got, this venture capitalist company that invested in 1Password had already Collide in their portfolio. And they said, well, let's see what happens if we take these two companies and put them together and maybe they can make something,
interesting.
The sum is greater than the parts. Maybe it wasn't 1Password that actually made that acquisition, and it was part of the agreement or something.
Interesting. Maybe. Yeah, that's a good point.
I'm sure might be public knowledge already, but I'm just theorizing.
Yeah, why don't you Google Live on the show, Jerry? You'll find out.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that was a really good, I got to give 1Password credit for at least having a solution to my very long-standing thing. I've complained about it. No one's ever told me to do that. So I think just wish I knew about that sooner, but that definitely solves a lot of my issues with just the search functionality. But I have to say, the extension crashes for me every time I try to use it. Do you guys see that? You click reload 1Password 5 times a day, right? In Safari. Yeah.
I'll make it brief, but I do still have issues. I'll put it that way. The extension also doesn't sync up with the 1Password app. So when I put in a new password there, it doesn't show up in my extension.
Oh, wow.
It's frustrating.
Yeah, that's annoying. Okay.
I'm going to stop there. I'm going to stop
All
there.
right. So Sam, a little birdie told me you had a Microsoft 365 topic to discuss.
Really? Who could have told you that? That's crazy. Yeah, I had this actually happened, I think, a few weeks ago at this point now, but I've been itching to bring it up on the show because it absolutely floored me as to what happened. And you're involved in this, Joe, just on a positive note. But,
I thankfully saw a similar issue a week before you, right? Yeah.
This blew my mind. I was like, so we've gotten definitely emails from customers that are like, I've been hacked, like all this stuff, or one of my employees has been hacked. And it's just a typical phishing campaign. The email, the from address is different. You're like, you're not hacked, relax, all that stuff. Right. So I get another email like that. And it's like, this looks suspicious. I think we've been hacked. And I'm like, oh, and I look, I'm like, oh, the from address looks like the actual address. I'm like, let me look at the source. That looks like it's coming from, oh my goodness, they've been hacked. Like, I was like, this is legit. Yeah. And so I was like, what do I do? So I start going into panic mode because I'm like, they have multi-factor authentication. How did this happen? And and what happened was during the breach, the attacker got access to the end user's account and sent a mass email to everybody in their contacts with a sketchy attachment that said like, oh, this is my SharePoint link with my voicemail. Please listen to it or something like that. And of course, on the back end, they set up rules in their Outlook to filter out the return emails and just delete them. So the user didn't really know anything was going on until one of the recipients in the company mentioned that this was happening. So we're going into full blown, panic mode, and I'm trying to sort out what's happening. And they're asking questions like, how did this happen? Of course. I'm like, I genuinely don't know yet. I can't figure this out. So I posted in our chat, in our internal chat, and I asked you guys, because I was desperate. I'm like, I need help. Do you guys know anything? And Joe, you come back with, I think I clued you in just by saying like they were infiltrated. We don't know how. Have you guys seen this?
That was the clue. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And you had mentioned something to do with a tool called Perfect Data. And
exactly. At first I said something like, something about authorized applications. Like it was in my head because I didn't deal with it. Tim dealt with it. So I said that to you and you're like, oh, interesting. And then I went back to Judy in my group chat with my team. And I said, do you remember like something about this client having this issue with applications, blah, blah, blah. Cause Sam's dealing with something right now. She found the message from Tim that mentioned something about Perfect Data. And just luckily it was the same freaking scam, I guess.
Yeah. And it's actually, I found, so you mentioned Perfect Data. I started looking it up and I saw that there was some history here of this happening with this enterprise application in Entra or Azure or whatever the heck you want to call it these days.
Today, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, I think you might not be onto something. So I log into their Entra portal and I go to their enterprise applications and there I see it in book because it's all in caps, this app. Perfect Data.
Right.
And I'm like, oh snap. And I'm like, so then I'm like, I'm both giddy and scared at the same time because I'm like, what the heck? So to bring this up to where we are now with this, or a little bit before current times, I went in there and I was immediately, I ditched the app, or I disabled the app is what you should do in that case, I guess. Oh no, here's what I did. I deleted the app, right? So I was like, okay, no more Perfect Data. I reset the user's password. But just to give everyone some backstory onto this, apparently Perfect Data is a legitimate enterprise application. That's an add-on, and it helps with backing up email data. So it actually clones the email folder.
Oh man.
Yeah. Wow. So I was like, I'm like, this is so not good. So that's something I had to relay to the customer, but we got Perfect Data out of there. And then we resolved the issue with the password and all this other stuff, just reset all their credentials. But then, so what we didn't realize was less than 24 hours later, someone clicked on the link that they sent, and that brought back Perfect Data.
It brought it back?
Yeah, it brought it back because this is what I found out is you shouldn't delete it necessarily. You should disable or block that application. Right. And so I was like, oh my God, I'm scrambling here. So anyway, I asked Microsoft about this, and they were just like,
Yeah.
well, please understand, we can't block every app. This is a legitimate tool. I'm like, yeah, but it's a legitimate tool that's being obviously overrun somehow. So you should block this app. There should be no reason that this is considered a valid enterprise application in any way.
Double confirm any new install, like double confirm or something. Like, I don't know. Yeah.
But here's the other piece of this that I think could be potentially useful information out there that I dug into and I took some notes about too. By default, users can add their own enterprise apps when they see a tool that they want to use. It doesn't install for the organization, but it installs for them. And that's default behavior in Microsoft Entra. I turn that S off right away. So you can go into, I have a note on this, applications, enterprise applications, consent and permissions, and do not allow user consent. Or you can allow it from verified publishers, but I just said no. I just said do not allow user consent at all.
Right, because Perfect Data would be a verified publisher, right? So it's like it wouldn't have stopped this,
And then there's another piece of it in Entra under user settings that users can register applications, and I turned that off as well.
Can you put that in the show notes?
Yeah, I will. Absolutely, Jerry. I'll tell the person who does the show notes to pop them in there. And so that killed it. I actually then I sent out a missive to my guys. I was like, go into every Microsoft Entra portal and change this stuff for every single customer right away. And we did it right away. And so far it's been clean, but that was crazy, man. That was crazy. I got to tell you.
Sam, this is like something, so like 6 or 12 months ago, I started this process on our side to like, we've been using Microsoft 365 for, I don't know how many years, 5 or 10 years with our clients, whatever. So some of those early ones were like not following current best practices, right? Because that's evolved over time. Like at the time we were following, best practices that were contemporary for that time. That has changed, and Microsoft has changed. And to their credit, they have changed their global security defaults and things like that. And they have like retroactively opted people in that had disabled stuff that they probably should have never disabled and whatever. And so we're kind of dealing with that too. But we've been making a list now recently of all of the things that we should really do as a standard practice for all of our Microsoft 365. But this is the kind of thing that it's always evolving because there's a new scam. It's a cat and mouse game. This is now, this needs to go on our list, turn off. And Tim made a note of this because when he dealt with it, he's like, oh, this is how this guy got scammed for the third freaking time. They've scammed the same customer multiple times. And it's always using, the first time is really simple and stupid and he fell for something or whatever. Now he's no longer, because that was, 5 or 10 years, he's no longer an admin. We're the admin. He's got his is not a global admin anymore. He's the one and only person on his account. In the early days, he was the admin by default. So he's not an admin anymore. Obviously multi-factor, all the things. They find another way in. We're like, I don't know how this happened, and the most recent attempt is this. So but the fact that it's evolving so quickly, like these things, they find new ways in, and Microsoft is very good about figuring out what the right defaults should be. But if you are the one and only person on the server, you're the CEO or whatever, and you have the ability to install an app that's going to suck out all your email to some third party, and they're going to like harvest using probably AI at this point to find like juicy stuff that they can exploit. Yeah. I mean, going back 10 years or whatever it was with this one client, there's probably stuff that they learned at that time about his net worth, about the accounts that he has. I mean, he had a bank scam at one point where they somehow got into his bank account. We still don't know how. They added their own phone numbers to his account, like as authorized phone numbers. Wow. So like, we don't, it's just a mess. But when you have a target like that, where they know that this is a juicy, payday for them, possibly, they will try everything and they'll find these, newer and better scams. And they will find the way he was exploited, I believe, was through Dropbox. I think they got into his email account through this Perfect Data thing, linked it to like a Dropbox sign thing or something, so that like in your case, the emails that were going out were like actually from his account, and some of them were from Microsoft 365 actually from his account, and others were from Dropbox that was, indeed like linked to his actual email address. So it's like sending from Dropbox legitimately from him, but like he didn't have access to that Dropbox account. It was like a pre-existing account that he had a long time ago and forgot about or whatever. And this hacker like reactivated it through having access to his email. So it's like a chain of attacks that is just getting more and more sophisticated, and they will try harder and harder to do it. So going back to the thing, like you said to your team, go into every account and make this change or whatever. Like we're still working through the original list of like enforcing security defaults and making sure that they're using Microsoft Defender and like all the different things that we want them to be doing. But for us, it's not just like go in and do it and spend their money. It's like do the review, make note of what they need us to do or what we recommend doing, and then reach out to them to say, we recommend doing this. It's going to take 30 minutes or an hour. It's just, it's like a process, you know, and I don't know, that's part of what I've been dealing with trying to deal with this.
Well, yeah, I think, you know, that is the ever evolving process as well, but you can build that as like, you know, we're going to do a fitness review or something like that.
Yeah.
But, you know, I have to say this at least triggered this client to be more alert and also buy a product. We weren't making any money on this particular product, but buying a product to help scan their emails and keep things clean, which they had previously refused as well. So there were some of those benefits that they had to fall victim to something first, but after that, this allowed them to then take some of the precautions that they should take. But yeah, to your point, I mean, this is ever evolving. It's a little scary because if you don't catch up to it, then it's on you for not doing something when it's like you plugged all the holes that you thought.
Yeah.
I have to say one just additional piece of this though. There is an extreme measure that you can take that none of, you know, most people I'll say wouldn't take, which is like the whole full on Microsoft conditional access stuff, which basically says like, you can only log in and download emails if you're on your company IP address or if you're on a work device or this or that. And you can go full on with this stuff, but it becomes a headache too.
Yeah.
It's like, where's the balance of like, this is annoying. I have to connect to VPN and check my mail or, you know, so
is that why, so that thing about, you know, conditional access and stuff like that, is that why when you go to add a Microsoft Exchange account to your iPhone, there's now a security delay? Like that's part of, if you have, what is the feature called? I'm drawing a blank. You know, it's Apple security. What is it? It's like it's related to trusted locations or known locations.
Oh, it could be actually. I don't actually know for sure, but you might be. It might be.
I'm looking now.
Thing.
Yeah, I forget. I don't know why I can't think of that. You know, so it's the same thing that we all talked about when it came up, where if you go to change your Apple ID password, it used to be just like go to your Apple ID settings and like you're good to go. All you need is the passcode. And hackers were like, oh, good, I'll just grab your phone. I saw you type your passcode. Now I have access to all your stuff, and I locked you out of everything too. And now you're screwed. And you're at a bar in New York City, and you don't have no way to get home to even get to your trusted device to try to undo the damage that I caused. That was a freaking mess. So Apple thankfully did the what did they call this? I don't know why can't I think? Yeah, what?
It's late. It's late.
Yeah, it's late for you guys especially, but so okay. So anyway, they have that feature that I can't think of, and I believe that also affects Microsoft Exchange because for the first time last week, I was walking a client through signing in on his iPhone, and you know he said I'm signed in on my work PC, but like I don't have my you know. So fine, go to settings, go to your account. Is it asking you for the password? No. The account that's in there is just not working. It's just not receiving new mail. So I'm like, all right, we'll delete the account. Add it back in again. No big deal. You go to add it back in again, and it's like, would you like to start the security delay? You know, it'll take 1 hour before you can go back in and add the account. And I was like, wow, okay. And I'm pretending that I know all about this already, you know, when I'm talking to him on the phone. So I'm like,
it's a security delay, yeah.
I'm like, yeah, start the security delay. Yeah, I expected that, of course, you know. And like, so he does it. He calls me back in an hour, and like we go through and we add it. But I'm wondering so is there a reason that you can't create a Microsoft Exchange account in the phone? Because if you're using conditional access, then it will like deploy profiles to your device, right? That would be required to access the account from the device, right?
I think it depends on the conditional access policies. Like a profile wouldn't be needed if it's just like the IP that your origin is coming from or something like that. So I talked to a couple of Microsoft techs about this because they know more than I do. And they're like, well, you should consider doing at least that to like say, if you're going to allow logging into email from anywhere, at least say if you're not on a trusted network, that you can't download or, grab permanent copies of stuff. And I'm like, I guess that's all right.
Yeah.
Like, that makes sense. I can still screenshot it, but
Yeah.
you're trying to do what you can.
More work.
Yeah, more
Right.
work.
I do believe that the conditional access is not available at the $4 or the $6 tier.
Right.
You have to buy a much more expensive plan, like the
That-
$12.50 seat, to be able to have that made available to you. So many of the people that I've signed up, they're in at the $6 a seat plan, so we can't work with this.
Okay.
You got a good point, Jerry. And this is why I think, fortunately, just at least for me, I have a trusted Microsoft connection. And one thing, I don't know if it really benefits everyone, but the monthly plans cost X amount of dollars. And what I guess the resellers do is they can sell them at a cheaper rate, but then it's an annual agreement.
Mhm.
But it ends up saving the customers. So my customer ends up buying that heavier product, Jerry, and then
Mhm.
they get the coverage, they buy in for the year, but they're not going anywhere. So
Mhm.
that's an option too, to work with a reseller for the discounted rates.
Right. That's a really good point.
Awesome.
And I was wondering too, Sam, like you said, that like, how do they leverage this perfect data? Like, how do they leverage? Do you know that how they leverage the app to make it a vector for attack?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure, to be honest with you. It's one of those things that like we dug in hard to fix.
Mhm.
And then like when it broke off, I needed a break from perfect data.
Yeah.
but I read on some websites about how it was compromised. I just don't know the how, man. I don't.
Mhm.
And how is it still a legitimate app with Microsoft?
Mhm.
You should shut them down until they fix their holes. And if you want to bring them back, fine, but shut it down. This is clearly an issue.
Yeah, there has to be
Yeah.
some. You would think that some review policy where Microsoft sort of calls them on the carpet and pulls the app temporarily until, like you said, they plug the
Yeah.
holes, and then they reinstate them.
Right.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's
Totally
frightening.
crazy.
It's really crazy.
Yeah. But
Well, I mean, yeah. You got any more on that one, Sam? On the
no. I'm just happy it's over.
Nice. I wanted to talk about a post by John Gruber during Fireball, talking about Apple Intelligence. He did his WWDC reflections about Apple Intelligence, and he talks about one specific feature of Apple Intelligence, which is the knowledge base of support documentation. So I thought his take on this was pretty interesting. So he says one of the best potentially is a new model that will allow Siri to answer technical support questions about Apple products and services. Interesting. I bet that got some people's attention. The model has been trained on Apple's own copious knowledge base of support documentation. The age-old gripe is that, quote, no one reads the documentation, but maybe now that's no longer a problem because Siri is reading it. Apple's platforms are so rich and deep, but most users' knowledge of them is shallow. I mean, we've been struggling for like, what's the name of that thing? What screen is it on?
Yeah.
The test is like, hey, pop quiz, Jerry, which screen is the setting for this feature on? It's like, we keep moving it just to keep you on your toes,
Yeah.
So yes, that's definitely true. So he says getting correct answers from Siri to specific how-to questions could be a game changer, because in the past, right, clients have always had to they tell us in vague terms, like, I don't know, it's that thing where there's like it's like a wavy line, and there, and I'm like trying to like click a thing, and like it usually helps me if I like have that thing turned on, and you're like, I don't know what, you're talking about this, and so like that. So we're the interpreters basically.
Mhm.
We're interpreting between normal people and their hand wavy, like searching for terms kind of explanations, and like what Apple calls something definitively, that's, a touch ID or something. So, you're translating and interpreting and then providing advice. But of course, AI is pretty good at that. They're pretty good at like fuzzy matching and stuff like that. So, he says, he says AI generated slop is polluting web search results for technical help. We've probably seen that too. I'm sure you guys have seen that. Apple, meanwhile, is using targeted AI trained on its own documentation to avoid the need to search the web in the first place. Technical documentation isn't sexy, but exposing it all through natural language queries could be one of the sleeper hits of this year's announcements. Because so that was John Gruber. So when this came out, like as part of the WWDC announcement keynote, I thought, okay, of course they're doing that. That's cool. Most people aren't going to probably even know how to ask the device, but actually, if it works well, like this will have a lot of just real world. People will just pass this secret along. They'll say, "Oh, I didn't know how to do that," and I just talked to my device. I pressed the button. And I said, "How do you do that thing where blah 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 blah?" And then it told me. It doesn't just tell you go to here and step 1, go here. Step 2, do that. All right, you already lost me. I'm confused. Yeah. No, it'll just go to the screen and put a circle on it, and you just have to click the thing that it's highlighting.
That's slick.
I think this actually could be something that finally disrupts the kind of end user support for iPhones, especially maybe the Mac to some degree, and maybe we won't have to deal with this as much anymore.
Well, yeah, you mean some of the stuff that we don't want to deal with, right? We'll still have tech support jobs, but some of the basic stuff that just wastes our time could be handled by something like this. That would be glorious, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a counterpoint to what I was ranting about in the previous show about, the whole industry is kind of on this downward spiral of just people falling into traps oh, whoops. Yeah. In your client's case, Sam, somebody fell for something, clicked a thing, and then their whole email was compromised. And, 12 hours later, they're out thousands of dollars, of time to remediate the issue. And, they're back where they started. It's what the heck, or my client falling into the trap of sure, you can come upgrade my service. And then they leave and she has no phone, and it's just that stuff is still kind of a mess, but at least maybe people will be able to navigate and be empowered to deal with their own, issues and questions and problems on their devices themselves. And we can do what we do, which is add a little value to improve their workflows, make them more efficient in certain ways, and, help them, intervene when there's issues like security problems and things like that.
Like I said, I wouldn't mind taking away the bottom of the barrel stuff for me, or for, I don't know if you guys would, but that stuff is frustrating to deal with. So I'd be okay with that if that raises the level of what we have to support to just this and better. Yeah, I'm game.
If they can deliver on some of these promises that they made in the keynote, it might potentially, like you pointed out and John pointed out, it potentially would be revolutionary or a game changer. I mean, if you run the beta right now, there's nothing on there that would even give you a small inkling that something like this is coming. So it's supposed to come sometime in the fall, but there's nothing on the phone right now. The phone looks like no different than iOS 17. Other than being able to fix up your home screen a little bit better. The other thing too to keep in mind is one of the points they kind of missed. Imagine if Apple was able to bake in a little AI into email and be able to look at an email and say, yeah, this is good, or this is rubbish, this is a scam. I mean, it can't be that difficult, and it just seemed like that would have been something which would have gotten everybody's eyes to sort of pop out.
I thought they did something like that, prioritized inbox or something.
Yeah, but no, I mean to say that hey, we're Perfect Data and we want to click on this link.
Yeah,
it just triggered.
This looks like a scam. Yeah, yeah.
It's not a chateau in France, Sam. For you, it's Perfect Data.
Perfect Data. Oh man.
No point though there, Jerry. If it can help protect the end user a bit more and be like, halt, one of your stickers, and just make sure stop and think.
Stop.
Stop. Property of MacWorks.
Yeah.
Or like Joe's sticker, peace, I love you very much, but you please don't click this.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But but I'm thinking about this more, because if they just did a basic check, like the name or the email address does not match the from or anything like this, warning, this is a big old something. Yeah. That alone would prevent a lot of things like that.
Yeah.
Apple should be talking to us.
Yeah.
I know. I say that all the time. Honestly. Yeah. Yeah. Hire us. Yeah. Yeah.
Buy the show.
yeah, sure, yeah, they'll do that. Yeah, we're already infringing on, command control power is probably their trademark anyway. Although it's actually technically control command power is the way you're supposed to organize the keyboard shortcut, right? I never learned it that way. I learned it as a kid. Actually, I learned it as
You're still a kid.
no, it was a control open apple restart was the thing. Did you ever learn about open apple and closed apple? Yeah,
Oh my
yeah,
god.
yeah. There was an open apple and a closed apple. It's like cool.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Good times. Those were simple times, weren't they?
They really were the simple times. We thought it was complicated then. Oh man. So I had, speaking of security stuff, iCloud is actually, I got to give Apple some credit. iCloud security model is actually really good with privacy in mind and security in mind. The fact that they allow you to encrypt your data at rest and in transit and, end to end basically, I don't know if anybody else is doing it to the same degree. I really don't. I mean, unless you're like hosting something yourself. I mean, like as far as like a public cloud kind of feature, they're pretty unique in that. So I'm talking specifically about advanced data protection. I had someone ask me about this recently, and it's one of these things where like you might think, oh, I need to be really careful about this. I need to like make sure I know what I'm doing and I don't get caught out in this and that. But I think it's actually really well thought out, and probably everybody should just enable it. It's the kind of thing where they make this an option for certain data, like for, I don't know, like your iCloud photos and things like that. Whereas like by default, that's not encrypted on Apple servers. So essentially what that means is like, if you're able to reset your password for iCloud, then, that data is all yours. Like that's all you need to be able to do. With advanced data protection, that's not good enough. Like you actually need your recovery key, or you need your trusted, I forget what they call it, your
trusted contact or something.
Yeah, your trusted contact, right? To who you like when you turn that feature on, you select at that time.
Yeah.
And so so I had somebody ask me about this and like what are the implications of doing that? And basically the idea is like so this is what Apple says about it. Advanced data protection is designed to maintain end-to-end encryption for shared content as long as all participants have advanced data protection enabled, which, by the way, that's actually really great too. Like they didn't even have to do that, but if I'm sharing something with you guys and you have advanced data protection turned on and so do I, we can both trust that Apple doesn't have access to it. The government, a hacker, no one has access to it except for us, because we're the trusted person. But what I think that implies is that if you don't have it turned on and you're sharing data with someone else, obviously that means that it still works, but it's not encrypted on the other side of things, because by definition, to share it with that person, it has to be unencrypted before it reaches them. It says this level of protection is supported in most iCloud sharing features, including iCloud shared photo library, iCloud Drive shared folders, and shared notes. That's, again, actually really great. Like the fact that they made that work between two people that both have this feature turned on, that therefore it's encrypted everywhere. Like I think the only exception is like Mail, because Mail was never designed that way. And if it needs to interoperate with like the global email system, it can't. But you have SMIME and things for that. But yeah, I just thought that, it's just worth a reminder that like basically everybody should probably turn on advanced data protection in your iCloud settings. And it's pretty straightforward to go through that process of turning it on. And there doesn't seem to be really any downside whatsoever, and a huge upside in terms of your security and your privacy.
You can't do it if you have an Intel machine, obviously.
Oh, I didn't know that. Really? Advanced data protection? I didn't know that.
Pretty sure, right, Mr. Apple? Where's our banner, Joe?
I don't have it ready.
Did we change my name?
Mr. Apple. Yeah, the other one was Mr. I know what Jerry wanted to call you, but we're not going to say that on the air. Yeah,
Mr. Terminal was the
Mr. Terminal. That's right, Mr. Terminal.
I like that one better.
Yeah.
So what was the question? It can't be an Intel. I'm not sure if for this particular thing, or are we?
Yeah,
sure?
I didn't read that in my reading of it. Yeah. Okay.
I'm pretty sure.
Let's coin we'll make a new Mr. Apple in the crew.
Well, can we look it up live and I get to win a prize, maybe a sticker or something like that?
You're responsible for your own,
Yes.
have you heard the phrase, do your own research, Jerry? I don't know if you've ever heard that term.
I could. You're pretty good with the computer, Joe. I'm not sure I could even like type at this point. So
I'm only good if you come and run the computer for me, though. When you offered it, that's the only.
Premium, though. It's a little bit much.
Yeah. Well, there's, you can go to the data security overview, iCloud data security overview on Apple's site. That's the knowledge base. I did a Command F, for find. I don't know if you guys have ever, but and I searched for Intel.
Wait a minute, let me write that down. Hold on.
Command,
my pencil.
No, you got it.
Here's my pencil, by the way.
Jerry, if you Command F, you'll find your previous note explaining the Command F shortcut. So that's it's not on there. So they don't mention Intel. I don't know if it's an app. Maybe I got to search for Apple Silicon.
Let's try to overtake the throne.
I had a Mac Mini that wasn't an M series, and I couldn't turn it on globally across my Apple ID. I'm pretty sure
they do say something about all of your devices have to support it. I thought that was more like the version, the OS version.
That could be. That could be. I had one that was pretty old.
Yeah, so this is starting with iOS 16.2, iPadOS 16.2, and macOS 13.1. So that's when this became available. And so, I mean, they have a whole chart on here about like which features are encrypted end-to-end and which are not. And then with advanced data protection, like basically almost all of them are. So yeah, just a reminder that I thought this was like, to me, it's like, oh, I better like be really careful and think about this carefully. And I don't know if I want to recommend it, but I think I would just recommend it to everybody pretty much. I mean, the downside, why does Apple not opt in people? Well, you could get locked out of your data. If you lose access to all of your trusted devices and you don't have your recovery key and you don't have your trusted contact, or the trusted contact is having their own problems or whatever. I mean, there's edge cases and, there's going to create a lot of people screaming in the Apple store. That's probably the main reason they don't turn it on by default. But
yeah, well, same reason, though, just for lawsuits, legal reasons, things like that. If you turn something on that changes the way they can operate and they might inadvertently lose data, you got class action written all over that,
That's true. Yep, exactly. Well, we can probably wrap up unless I have a couple of little PSA type things, or you guys have.
By the way, that was spoken like that was spoken like a true Mr. Apple right there.
I guess I'll take the turn back.
Yeah,
everybody goes running to hear that.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So I'll give you guys a quick PSA as we round out the show. So HFS, you know what HFS stands for, right?
Plus?
No. So HFS, hierarchical file system. So it taught me the word back in high school. It taught me the word hierarchical, and a lot of people can't pronounce that word. I always thought it was
a tough
one. It's a tough one. It's almost as bad as multi-factor authentication.
I hear a lot of people say authentication.
Oh yeah. They can't. They get halfway through that word and they are just done. I tell people like lately, I'm like, multi-factor authentication has got to be like it's either like a troll. It's like the technology industry trolling normal people. Like, let's see if you can say this word, or it's just like. It's just poorly branded. Like no one can say that, let alone understand what it is and why it's important. It just sounds like, I don't know. It's a bunch of nerds trying to sound like they have the jargon that you don't. I'm sorry, but that's my cynical take on multi-factor.
What about things that we, speaking of acronyms, what about things that we use every single day? URL, HTTPS. Most people don't know what either one of those things stand for.
Yeah, what's the URL? I mean, why? What's the link? Why don't we just use the normal term that people know? Anyway, So HFS, hierarchical file system. So that was the file system, like in the early days, like in the OS, System 9, System 7, like old, stuff. I think HFS Plus, so HFS Plus became a thing in
HFS Plus.
Yeah, was that Mac? I think Mac OS 10, right? Was HFS Plus. There is no HFS Plus yet. So the reason I bring all this up is that I had a client reach out to me who said, I have these old CDs and they won't work. And, Apple did away with the file system and, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, really? That doesn't, I don't think, I've never heard that. I'm like skeptical, right? So I did some research and it turns out that old CD-ROMs may have been burned with the HFS file system, not even HFS plus, but HFS.
Huh.
And it turns out in Catalina, Apple stopped supporting HFS,
Mhm.
which I'm sure I knew that at the time and probably didn't affect anybody, right? But like,
Mhm.
so fast forward, and these people have a stacks of CDs that have HFS file systems, and they put them in, and they just don't work on the Mac, on a modern Mac.
That's
I
crazy.
So the
bet I know the
recommended,
client you're referring to, Joe.
I don't know if you
Right?
do,
I've
but
been there. I've been there.
no, I don't think so. Wait, who are you
No?
thinking
Okay.
of? Now I'm trying to remember. No,
Photographer, right? No, it's not the photographer?
no, good thought. I was
Oh,
actually
okay.
just thinking of them also, but they have
Yeah.
DVDs that of all
Gotcha.
of a lot of their old work and stuff. That I think those had to be HFS plus. I think at the time, but yeah, no, this was an artist that has been doing this stuff again since the days of like System 6 probably, or System 7, and was
Mhm.
burning CDs to archive work way back then, and just has all these old CDs. If they even are readable at all, like they're not readable on a modern Mac. So the
All
solution
those
is install.
all those Mac I just gonna all those Mac Paint creations they were saving, right?
Probably that's the other problem is like, okay, now you've got the data. Can you find an app that's going to read it? I mean, this is
Right,
like a
right.
whole stacked, troubleshooting problem.
AppleWorks.
But yeah, maybe exactly. It's gonna be blast from the past all the way down. But
Mm.
so apparently you can use VMware Fusion. You can even use a free trial, and
Oh,
they have
wow.
instructions on installing old Mac OS versions. You can install Mojave. You can get a free download from Apple. Apparently, still install it on on VMware Fusion on a modern Mac, and actually tell the VM to use the external drive, and then you can read the CDs. So
Wow.
PSA
cool.
for anybody out there. But yeah,
How about your
HFS
favorite, Snow Leopard? Can you put on Snow Leopard? I know how much you love that.
10.6. Yes, that should work.
10.6.
That should work. Yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
My favorite is
Well,
Catalina, just so I can say the fucking Catalina wine mixer. I don't know if you guys know that reference.
now you've changed the rating on the show, for goodness sakes. That's a great
Oh,
tip, Joe.
man.
See, this is why
Yeah.
I tune
yeah.
in every week. You guys were a
Yep.
little angry last week, but this week you're really happy and you're all
That was
smiling.
fine.
So I like it when you guys are happy.
Thanks, Jerry.
Nice. Our biggest fan here is Jerry
Yeah.
right now. Oh man. Yeah, I thought that was a good tip. I'll send you the for the show notes. So the person who does the show notes, you can tell them, Sam, and yeah.
Yeah, I'll be sure to tell them.
Guys, there's the hearts.
look
Love
at
you
Sam,
guys.
Look at you go. Oh.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for tuning into another episode of Command Control Power. We really appreciate you listening. Let us know that you heard the show and let us know your feedback. We'd love to hear that as well.
What do they have to do? They have to watch the show too, right, Joe? And
Watch
like
the
us on
show on
Facebook.
YouTube.
Like us on, I was going to say Facebook. Like us on YouTube.
You can like us
Yeah.
everywhere. And consider signing up for Patreon for more behind the scenes episodes where we talk a little bit more candidly. You probably get a little bit more juicy tips there about how to navigate certain tricky situations we all deal with. commandcontrolpower.com. Click on support for Patreon. And just
So
sign up.
and if they sign up, they could watch the not for prime time videos through a private link, correct?
That's right.
And
You
we could
can
have more
even
than
join us
7
live.
people watch them.
Yeah, that would be really encouraging. But in the meantime, you can watch the show, the public shows. Just look for the link in the show notes to the YouTube stream, and you can watch us, rant and rave live. So if you're interested, there was a funny one a couple of shows back where Jerry fell off of his chair. That was that was pretty funny. It's a Patreon show though. You got to be signed up.
Yeah, help I fall in and I can't get up. Yeah.
It was that kind of thing. Live,
Yeah.
It was worth it. All right. Well, good talking to you guys again. Thanks for hearing me rant on the previous one too, and all the tech frustrations. I'm sure a lot of people can relate, but we had some more positive stuff this week, so that was fun too. Bye, guys.